What's happening, guys? Welcome back. So, as you can see by the thumbnail and title of this video, the bike is pretty much finished. There's still a few little niggly bits and bobs that need doing on it. The carbs need setting up, and there's a few other little bits, but it is essentially there. And I have to say, it looks amazing. Check this out. I've got to say, this thing has turned out even better than I thought it would. It is pretty much the image I had in my head, but the little details, the rear set brackets, the tank collar, the tank graphics, it just all pulls it in together, and I am so happy with the way it's turned out. So let me take you for a walk around it, and I'll talk through a few things that we've done. So the first episode on the bike was spent trying to get this front end fitted. Now this front end is from a 2004 Kawasaki ZX10R. Now if you remember, I bought the complete bike because I don't like buying parts and things ending up being missing. If you've got the complete bike, you've got everything you need to do the job that you want to do. So we test fitted this, and as expected, the stem was too short, meaning it wouldn't work with the head tube on the XV750. So a quick search on the internet, and I bought a new stem from Cognito Moto. Now, they didn't do a stem for the ZX10 triple trees, but they did do one for the Yamaha R1. I think it's the 4XV, the very first of the R1s. So I then bought the triples and stem off of the 4XV Yamaha R1, so I could replace the stem in that for the one that would fit with this head tube, and it also worked with these forks as they were the same diameter and same spacing. And I've got to say, just doing that fork swap on the front end makes such a difference. The nicer front wheel, the nice brakes, discs, and the nice gold upside down forks really do just set the front end of this bike off. So the next thing we wanted to address was the fuel tank. Get that set up a little bit more and get it looking a little bit more like a sort of sports bike than the cruiser that it was. We then made this custom rear seat subframe. Now I looked at a few different options online, and what's available is very expensive really for what it is. So we just bought a standard seat hoop off eBay. I think there's a 20-degree bend in it. This bit here was a little bit too long, so we shortened that. We added a bit more of an angle in here. Down bars come down to mount into original points that are on the frame for the, I think it was for the original seat. Neil Roy, who's in the workshop as well, who's restored his GPZ, he suggested putting a slight bend in this part here just to help flow with the line of the tank. And I think that little change there makes such a difference to the overall look of the bike. Another design feature that's in this seat hoop is it's got an integrated side light, brake and indicator module all built in. What we did with that was drilled 2 holes either end, joined them up with an angle grinder, cleaned it up, and that now pushes up through the tube and holds in place by 3 screws, pushing it out onto the outside edge of the seat hoop. So another thing that was on the list from the very beginning was to get rid of these big, bulky, heavy cast rear set brackets that came from factory. For a start off, your foot is a little bit too far back for the new riding position. I wanted to move it forward, so I think we've brought it forward by around 3 inches. I bought some off-the-shelf aluminium rear sets as well, which I think work and look really quite nice. Now we've got them painted. We then had to design up our own rear brake mechanism because it's all push rod, so it's not hydraulic. We've got a bar here that comes from the rear set bracket to an angled piece of metal that pivots on this point. That bar then goes off down to the back brake and activates the back brake. So the next thing on the list to sort was the electric system. Now, the original factory electrics are fine and they work okay. They're just big, bulky, and it's difficult to try and hide them on a clean, sleek looking bike. So we did away with all of that and we opted for a full Moto Gadget system. So we've got a Moto Gadget Mo Unit Blue. It's a Bluetooth system that links to your phone. You can change settings, start the bike from your phone, things of that. It's just a brilliant, small little system. We coupled that with an anti-gravity battery's 12-cell lithium-ion battery. We've got a Rix Electric regulator rectifier to help run it all and keep the system charged up. We've run that through a breakout box, which then allows us to input more signals to come up to the Moto Gadget Motoscope Pro dashboard, which it just looks absolutely amazing. It looks so much better than a big, round, old-style clock. So while building the bike, the original wheel really wasn't doing it for me. I came up with a few options of trying to fill things in. I was going to fully disc the rear wheel in, but I was never totally happy with the way that they were going to look. So in the end, after a little bit of searching, I found out that the wheel from a Yamaha XV750 was a direct fit. So that's what we opted for, and I think that the 5-spoke design of this wheel fits in much better with the design of the front wheel. Next up was the seat. Now I knew the exact design, shape, colours, materials and everything that I wanted to do with the seat. Started off by making out of some 2mm steel a piece of plate that followed this shape of the bike and a little upstand that was shaped to the back of the tank. I then sent the seat bait off to Carl at Custom Stitch, who, working off of a very crude drawing of mine, sent us back this absolutely awesome looking seat. Now the seat is covered in a material called Dynamica. It's a type of Alcantara, it's a different brand. We've got a nice grey stitching detail with the DAC IND logo stitched on the top. So something else I was never really overly happy with were the original carbs that came on the bike. They were a bit big, a bit bulky, they just didn't look very nice. They were also vacuum, so there were lines going all over the place that really didn't need to be there. So what I opted for were a pair of Mikuni carbs, which I think help clean up the bike a lot. They're not vacuum, so we managed to get rid of loads of different wiring. You've just literally got one pipe in either side from the tank. That's your lot. So a little design that I was racking my brains about for ages of how I was going to do it and where I was going to put it was the ignition. I didn't want to go putting it up on the triples because I just thought it was going to look out of place. I wanted to try and hide it out of the seat, but figured it looked just as good here, making a bit of a feature out of it. So this is the hole for where the original airbox went, which fed the air up through the frame. All I've done is made a plate with the hole in, mounted it to there, fixed it on, sent the wire up through the frame to the ignition module, and it works like a treat. So while we're still down here, the rear shock. The rear shock that came on the bike was a gas adjustable, some sort of wizardry that I didn't really understand. It didn't work, there was no gas left in it, so there was no damping or anything left on the shock. So we removed that. We then realised that we had the rear shock from the ZX10 sat in the workshop, so we made a new custom mount for the top of it, a new pin for the bottom of it, and I think it looks pretty nice. So after we'd got all the fabrication done on the bike and we were happy with the way that it was starting to come together, it was time to start thinking about what colour we were going to paint things. I didn't want to go doing the easy thing and just powder coat everything black, so what I opted for was the grey bits are painted in a Cerakote. I think it's Sniper Grey. You just spray it on, leave it for 5 days, it air cures, and I think it's just got a nicer finish than powder coat, and it definitely looks better than if it was all black. So the next thing to address was the fuel tank. This is a 1981 bike, and the bike had been sat for a number of years, so the inside of the tank had become quite rusty. What I opted for was a POR 15 system. Now this is various different chemical stages that allow you to de-rust the tank, clean the tank, and seal the tank so you'll have no rust issues again in the future. So staying with the tank, I knew I wanted to paint it green, but I didn't know quite what green. A choice trip over to Aston Martin in Nottingham, and I fell in love with the colour on their Formula 1 car. Now this is a couple of shades off that because the Formula 1 car is a Q code and you can't get hold of it. This is Aston Martin Viridian Green. You can't see it really in the video, but the metallic in it is amazing. Now I managed to get about 6 coats of lacquer on it as well, so the depth to it is absolutely amazing. So I wanted some graphics on the tank, but I didn't want anything that was too stand out and too in your face. So what I opted for was some matte clear vinyls that were laid over the first coat of lacquer. We then threw lacquer over the top of that as well and had a friend come over and flat and polish it back, and the results are exactly what I was looking for. Next up on the list was the exhaust. Now again, I didn't want anything too in your face and too stand out. So what I opted for was using the standard rear pipe from the bike and adapting and making a new tailpipe. We used the original pipe all the way down to about here and made our own tailpipe here with slash cuts, and I think it looks amazing and it sounds incredible. One of the last jobs to sort out was working out how we were going to mount the number plate and get a number plate light in it. So a simple little bent bracket with a plate with a pressed steel number plate on finishes off the back end. As I said at the start of the video, this bike has turned out pretty much the picture I had in my mind when we set out on doing this project. It does need a bit of setting up, and the starter motor doesn't engage properly every time, so we need to sort the starter motor out, get the carbs set up. But other than that, it's mostly done, and it sounds amazing. It's a little bit loud. Yeah, it is a little bit loud, but it looks cool, sounds cool, and hopefully it'll go cool when we get an MOT on it and go and give it a go on the road. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the last episode on this or not. There are still a few little bits to do. As I've said, we might film them or we might just get them sorted, and then this bike will be up for sale. So if you're interested, hit me an email. I'll put the link in the description to my email address. I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. I'm not sure if we're going to do another bike or not in the future. We might do, because I might have to build myself something nice to ride around on next summer. But we're going to leave that one there then, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Until next time, enjoy.